There is a 21-year-old from the Philippines who has beaten a top 10 player 6 separate times this year. And if that sentence surprised you, stick around, because by the end of this video you're going to understand exactly why Saturday afternoon in Washington, D.C. might be the biggest match of her career so far. It happened late Thursday night at the Mubadala City DC Open, one of the marquee stops on the WTA calendar, when Alex Eala walked out against the tournament's second seed, world number 10 Alina Svitolina, and simply took her apart, 6-3, 6-4, a scoreline that undersells just how in control she was from start to finish. That result locked in her third semifinal appearance of the season, and it also set up the match tennis fans in two very different countries have been circling on their calendars for weeks, because on Saturday, Eala doesn't just face another dangerous opponent, she faces Naomi Osaka. Before we dive into why this matchup carries so much weight, let's get the context straight, because the rankings tell one version of events and the tennis on the court tells a completely different one. Eala arrives at this semi-final as the world number 28, a career-best mark she hit after grinding through to the fourth round at Wimbledon last month. And she's done it all here in Washington without a seed next to her name, meaning nothing about this run has come easy or been handed to her. Osaka enters as the third seed and world number 14, a four-time major champion who just reached her first career quarterfinal at this event and is now playing her second semifinal of the year. The two of them have never shared a court before. Not at any level, not once. And look, the obvious narrative here writes itself, plucky newcomer against battle-tested champion, a fairy tale run smashing headfirst into royalty, but that framing doesn't actually survive contact with the facts, because what's really happening on Saturday isn't an underdog story meeting an established one, it's two separate comeback arcs slamming into each other at precisely the right moment. Think about what Osaka has been through to even be standing on this court. She walked away from the tour to become a mother and to protect her own mental health, the kind of decision that permanently sidelines most careers, and yet here she is, 28 years old, fighting tooth and nail to reclaim ground she once owned outright. Just over a month ago at Wimbledon, seeded 14th, she took down the world number 1 en route to the deepest run she's ever had at that tournament. This isn't a name being wheeled out on nostalgia and reputation. This is a former world number 1 actively clawing her way back into relevance in real time. Eala's journey looks nothing like that. It starts with a junior Grand Slam title at the US Open in 2022, continues through a title on the grass courts of Birmingham this year, and includes a semi-final run in Miami last year that had tennis commentators everywhere suddenly learning how to say her name correctly. Two wildly different paths, two players at completely different stages of their careers, both ending up at the exact same door this Saturday afternoon. And that collision, not some tidy underdog story, is what actually makes this compelling. Now let's get into why none of this looks like a hot streak or a lucky bracket, because the pattern behind these results has been building for a while. 6 wins over top 10 opponents in one season doesn't happen through chance, and 3 of those 6 wins came within a single 5-day window at this tournament alone. It began when Eala opened her run against an Olympic gold medalist who entered as a wild card, dropping the opening set before roaring back to take the next 2 convincingly. 2 days after that, she ran into the tournament's defending champion, a tough left-handed opponent who had actually beaten her earlier this season in straight sets. This time the result flipped entirely, with Eala cruising through in 2 sets. Then came Thursday night, and the world number 10 fell just as cleanly. An Olympic champion, a defending champion, and a top 10 veteran, 3 completely different styles of tennis, 3 problems solved inside of 5 days. But here's the piece of this that should really stop you in your tracks. 5 weeks before this match, on the grass courts in Berlin, Eala had already faced this same opponent, Svitolina, and won by the exact same score, 6-3, 6-4. Same score, entirely different surface, a different country, thousands of miles separating the 2 matches, and somehow an identical outcome. That's not something you can shrug off as coincidence. That's a pattern repeating itself almost on command. Svitolina had actually said publicly the day before that a change in conditions might finally swing things her way, and it simply didn't happen. Reports from that match show Eala dominating the return games all night, breaking serve 4 separate times against a player nearly 20 spots above her in the rankings, taking control of long exchanges against one of the better returners on the entire tour. Add it all up, and you're not looking at a fortunate draw, you're looking at a player who has genuinely cracked the code. Here's where this story stops being purely about tennis, because these two athletes have already spoken about each other on the record, and neither one held anything back. Earlier this year, in comments picked up widely by media across the Philippines, Osaka was asked directly about the rising Filipina star, and her response was immediate, calling her seriously impressive and saying it was thrilling to watch someone like her rise through the sport. That was months before Wimbledon even started, months before this week existed. And after the Svitolina win Thursday night, Eala was asked the same kind of question about Saturday's opponent, and her answer carried the same warmth, describing Osaka as someone whose impact reaches well beyond the tennis court, someone she deeply respects. There's no trash talk in either quote, no manufactured beef, and that's actually the whole point. Rivalries don't require animosity to feel real. What makes this one stand out is that two players on opposite ends of the ranking chart have already acknowledged one another. Publicly, something that almost never happens between an established champion and someone still working their way into the top 20. Osaka knew this name before most casual fans did. Eala, in return, spoke specifically about the parts of Osaka's story that extend past the sport itself, her cultural influence, her honesty around mental health, the qualities that turned her into a global figure rather than just another champion. Both of them are speaking about each other like equals, even though the numbers next to their names suggest otherwise, and that disconnect between the rankings and the mutual respect says everything about how far this young player has already come. Let's spend a moment on Osaka specifically, because none of this works if we undersell where she actually stands right now. This is not a fading champion coasting through a soft draw. She's actively battling her way back into serious contention at 28, and the trajectory suggests her best tennis in this comeback still lies ahead. At Wimbledon, she made her first career quarterfinal there, and in the round before it, she beat the world's top-ranked player outright. Her path to this semifinal in Washington wasn't smooth either. She advanced to the quarterfinal after an opponent had to retire, and once there, she lost the first set before grinding through a 3-set battle that stretched past 2 hours. She's shown flashes of frustration this week, which is completely normal for a player working her way back into rhythm at this level, but she's also standing 2 matches deep in a semifinal run at a 500-level tournament, and that tells you her form is heading in the right direction. So here's the actual tennis question hanging over Saturday. If Eala plays the way she played against Svitolina, dictating return games and pouncing on a serve that's occasionally wobbled this week, she has a legitimate path through this match. But if Osaka brings the version of herself that dismantled the world number 1 at Wimbledon, locked in, aggressive, dictating rallies from the baseline, those same openings simply disappear. That's the entire match right there. Not a formality in either direction, a genuine coin flip between two players both trending upward at exactly the same time. And if you want the most credible source on record for just how dangerous Eala has become, it doesn't come from a broadcaster or a former pro sitting behind a desk, it comes from Svitolina herself, speaking the day before her loss. Asked about the rematch ahead of time, she admitted the defeat in Berlin still stung, and said she was counting on the different surface, country, and city to shift the outcome in her favor. Sit with that for a second, now that you know what happened next. This is a former WTA Finals champion, a recent Italian Open winner, a top 10 player in the world, essentially trying to convince herself out loud that the conditions responsible for her earlier loss wouldn't matter this time around. 24 hours later, new surface, new country, new city, and the exact same result down to the score. That's not speculation, that's not a media narrative, that's a theory stated publicly by a top 10 player and then disproven within a single day. Any lingering doubt about whether Eala's breakthrough was somehow tied to grass courts and favorable conditions got quietly erased by the one person with every reason to hope it was true. Now step back for a second, because this run means something well beyond one bracket in the American capital. This event opens the North American hardcourt swing, meaning next week the tour shifts to Toronto, then Cincinnati the week after, and then straight into the US Open at the end of August, where Eala already holds a direct spot in the main draw as a top 30 player. Points earned in a semifinal here don't just move a ranking number up a few spots, They build real leverage heading into the sport's biggest events. A player walking into the US Open having beaten a defending champion, an Olympic gold medalist, and a top 10 veteran within the same week, while pushing a 4-time major champion to the limit in a semifinal, carries an entirely different weight into that draw than someone who barely scraped through qualifying. There's also a bigger picture here that goes beyond rankings entirely. This Saturday's semifinal is, in its own way, Japan facing the Philippines, two of the most recognizable players from tennis cultures that rarely collide at this stage, meeting in a match that genuinely matters for both sides. News outlets across the Philippines picked up the Svitolina result within the hour, and fans there are used to watching these matches unfold in the middle of the night, a rhythm that's become familiar for a fanbase tracking every step of this run so far. On the other side, Japanese tennis has its most accomplished player in a generation fighting her way back into real contention on hard courts. Both fanbases have genuine stakes in this outcome, regardless of who ends up winning on Saturday. And here's the part of the story that keeps everything grounded, because a simple highlight reel doesn't capture how close this almost didn't happen at all. Less than a day before facing Svitolina, Eala was in serious trouble against that same defending champion, trailing badly in the second set after being broken multiple times, watching her opponent build a lead that looked destined for a third set. From that exact position, she reeled off 6 of the next 7 games and closed the tiebreak decisively. That same opponent had actually beaten her earlier in the season in fairly quick fashion, and in this rematch, from a much tougher spot, Eala solved problems that had gone unsolved just months before. This isn't about sentiment, it's about context. Whatever she carries into Saturday's match against Osaka isn't the game of someone who breezed through an easy draw. It's the game of a player who has already faced real adversity this week and fought her way through it more than once. So here's where things stand heading into Saturday afternoon. Eala sits at world number 28, yet she's taken down 6 top 10 players this year, 3 of them within a single 5-day stretch at this one event. She's beaten the same top 10 opponent twice, on 2 different continents essentially, with the identical scoreline both times. Osaka has already called her genuinely impressive in her own words, and Svitolina, a day before losing to her again, all but admitted she needed everything to change just to have a shot. She's clawed back from the edge against a defending champion when it mattered most. Now she's stepping onto a hard court in Washington to face a 4-time Grand Slam champion for a place in the final. This isn't some fairy tale anymore. This is what it looks like when a career gets built in real time, match by match, until the ranking finally catches up with what's already obvious to anyone watching. Win or lose Saturday, the ceiling has already shifted. So if you've been following this journey since Miami last year, since Wimbledon last month, since this week's run through Washington, you already know exactly what's coming next. And if this is the first time you're hearing her name, welcome, because this story is just getting started.